Franklin Fire Pit.
Franklin Fire.
Franklin Inferno.
Franklin Flame.
Franklin Flame. Incinerator.
So many missed opportunities.
Right. Yeah,
People at 1700s were dumb.
Seriously.
Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required.
We're the podcast that recaps all the episodes of The Big Bang Theory. No spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot,
Make yourself a grasshopper,
and enjoy the ride. Kites ho, Ryan. Kites ho.
Kites ho! You're using it wrong, Rob.
I'm pretty sure I'm doing it right, ho bag. Oh, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great because we just watched Season 3, Episode 6, The Cornhusker Vortex.
Oh, yeah.
For any new listeners out there, I'm Rob, this is my co-host Ryan, and we are Theoretical Nonsense, the podcast that recaps, reviews, and deep dives facts from the Big Bang Theory, which we call IQ points. As a reminder to everyone, I've seen the series multiple times, but this is Ryan's first time watching, so we do our best to do no spoilers. And Ryan has also been told that he's very similar to Sheldon, so we keep a point tally of how close Ryan is to Sheldon.
And right now it is tied, neck and neck, 77 to 77.
Well, if you're a huge kite enthusiast, that might tip the scales this time around.
You know, we'll find out. I was kind of surprised what happened this episode, but I don't want to ruin it.
Okay.
So yeah, but I was a little surprised what went down and how it went down. So yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I really enjoyed this episode.
I liked it too. You know, I watched it twice, and the first time I was like, and then the second time, I'm like, you know, I didn't give it enough credit. There were parts of it that I really enjoyed, and some character development, and Leonard and Penny's relationship developing a little bit, and getting to see the inside of that a little bit.
Yeah, I do like that they're approaching a kind of a real world situation in relationships. It's like the meeting of the friends and everything like that. So it's kind of a big deal, but granted they kind of danced over that part and focused on the football part, but it was still really good at how they brought it up and everything.
Yeah.
And learning more about Sheldon too, I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Something I did not expect from Sheldon.
Yeah. Nope, I don't think anybody did, but it really makes a lot of sense though, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Don't forget to shoot us an email at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. I can't believe I forgot our email. Maybe that's why no one's emailing us.
That could be. We have an email? Oh, wow.
Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Theoretical Nonsense Pod.
It's been a while since we've had a review, so we need something to read online on live podcasts. So
send us a 5-star review.
What am I trying to say here?
We'll read the 5-star reviews. Not that I'm trying to bribe you or anything like that, but I kind of am.
Yeah, we can read it for you. It's just leave it there and we'll read it.
Yeah, or shoot us an email.
Or shoot us an email. A nice one, please.
Yes, please. All right. Shall we get started?
Yeah, I think so. Dive right in. So this aired November 2nd, 2009. On the bright side, Thanksgiving and Christmas episodes are just around the corner, I'm hoping. On the downside, no Halloween episode. So,
sad.
Maybe next year. Director Marcus Zandrowski. Writers Chuck Lorre, Bill Prady, and David Ghosh. Ghosh. I like that. Ghosh. Okay, so we start off in the hallway, and the boys are screaming, "Kites ho!" when Sheldon interrupts them and says they are misusing the term ho. That is intended to let people know that there is land nearby or something is coming up soon. And they look at him and kind of consider what he has to say, but scream it again. Kites ho! And Penny comes around the corner and asks if they are going out to discover electricity. Sheldon also corrects her, saying Benjamin Franklin did not discover electricity. He determined lightning consisted of electricity. And so I did a little bit of research into the first IQ point here.
I did as well.
Benjamin Franklin. You want to go first?
Sure. So the first thing is I wanted to cross-check if everything that Sheldon said about Benjamin Franklin did was true. And spoiler, I'll just jump ahead and say, yes, it's true. But then it got me wondering, like, oh, why is Ben Franklin so cool? And I bring this up because you haven't seen it yet, but there is an Office episode in the future, or did you binge and catch up to this part?
Nope, I haven't gotten there yet.
Well, there is an episode dedicated to Benjamin Franklin.
Ooh.
And it just got me it got me thinking even more. It's like, if there's a whole thing dedicated, or if there was an episode of The Office dedicated to it, and we know he's like a huge inspiration in American history, why is he so cool? What did he do? And I know he did a lot of things, but I wasn't really sure, like, everything.
It's like the
I guess
most
I'm really
famous
bad at American history.
American that wasn't president, and that always blows my mind that we hold him up to like the same rigor as George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or something, and he wasn't.
Yeah, he was never president.
Yeah, he was just doing his own thing, making inventions and sending them off to people.
Yeah, but then I started looking more into him, and it's like, dude, this guy was like a badass. He was a historical badass. It's like, why isn't there a musical on him? Shit.
Or something where he's fighting vampires.
I know.
Right? Zombies, at least? Werewolves? Benjamin Franklin and the werewolves? I like it.
Well, if you're from America, you probably know a lot about him, but for a lot of people internationally, and even myself, who don't know a lot about Benjamin Franklin, here you go. So, Benjamin Franklin was one of the leading figures of early American history. He lived from 1706 to 1790. He was a statesman, author, publisher, scientist, inventor, and diplomat, and now lives eternally on our $100 bill. And here are the top 7 achievements of Benjamin Franklin. So this could get a little long, so hopefully I don't take off all the information. Well, the first thing that he did, as Sheldon mentioned, was the Franklin stove. In 1740, but there was Wikipedia actually said it was 1743, so I don't really know. But it was in that time. And what is the Franklin stove? The Franklin stove is a freestanding stove that was able to produce more heat for less fuel as compared to contemporaries of the period. Not to be confused with an actual stove, this was a fireplace. It had a hollow baffle near the rear to transfer more heat from the fire to a room's air, and relied on an inverted siphon to draw the fire's hot fumes around the baffle, so more heat and less smoke. Number 2, he created a musical instrument called the armonica, which is derived from the Italian word of harmony. This is a descendant of the glass harp and musical glass, where players would use their fingers to rub against the glass to create sounds. Yep. Both Ludwig van Beethoven and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart composed music for this strange instrument. Today, similar devices are known commonly as friction idiophones. And then, number 3, as Sheldon mentioned, the bifocals. Number 4, he helped pen the American Declaration of Independence as the U.S. Constitution. He was part of the Committee of 5, which were the ones that drafted the Declaration. Number 5, he was the first Postmaster General of the United States. In 1737, Benjamin Franklin was appointed as the very first postmaster for Philadelphia by the British Crown Post, a post he held until Number 6, he helped create the first American political cartoon. Franklin was a huge advocate for free speech, so he and Hugh Meredith bought the newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette, in 1729. He wrote many satirical pieces in it under aliases. Join or Die, the very first political cartoon in America, was personally created by Benjamin in 1754. It later became an important symbol of colonial unity during the Revolution and remains popular to this day. And then the final IQ point, the reason why we're kind of talking about this, his work with lightning. So he actually created the lightning rod, which protects many structures. And then I did a little bit of IQ point on what his actual experiment was. I don't know if you did that.
But I did a little bit. I'm curious what you got, because it's actually quite a bit more confusing than I was thinking. So
yeah, it's kind of like what Sheldon was saying. He didn't discover electricity at this time period. People already knew electricity existed. He just wanted to see if lightning was electricity itself.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a popular belief that the lightning struck the kite, but if it did, he'd be dead. So that never actually happened. So, in a nutshell, this is what happened with that lightning experiment. So he used a kite with a large handkerchief, a hemp string, and a silk string. He also used a house key, a Leyden jar, which is a device that can store electrical charge for later use, and a sharp length of wire. So here's how it all went down. Franklin constructed a simple kite and attached a wire to the top of it to act as a lightning rod. To the bottom of the kite, he attached a hemp string, and to that he attached a silk string. Why both? The hemp, wetted by the rain, would conduct an electrical charge quickly. The silk string, kept dry as it was held by Franklin in the doorway of a shed, wouldn't. The last piece of the puzzle was the metal key. Franklin attached it to the hemp string and, with his son's help, got the kite aloft. When they waited, Franklin noticed loose threads of the hemp string standing erect, just as if they had been suspended on a common conductor. Franklin moved his finger near the key, and as the negative charges in the metal piece were attracted to the positive charges in his hand, he felt a spark. He put his knuckle to the key, and the discovery was complete. He perceived a very evident electric spark. Using the Leyden jar, Franklin collected electric fire very copiously, and then he discharged it at a later time. So he was able to collect the electricity from the lightning. Uh-huh. So that's kind of what he did.
That's something I didn't realize. I always thought that the kite got struck by lightning. That's kind of what the legends become, but I found the same thing as you on BenjaminFranklinHistory.org, that he basically brought the kite down and touched the key, and upon touching the key, it was like static electricity. He got shocked, and that's how he knew his experiment worked, was because it was building up a negative charge, and then his positive charge, messed with it, and it became electricity, or whatever. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting that it wasn't struck by lightning like I always thought it was. But the other things, the stove, something interesting I found about it was that apparently it didn't sell very well. That it took somebody else redesigning it for it to really become popular. And from my understanding, it didn't sell well because it relied on the flue to like go down or backwards before it goes up the chimney, which caused the fire to not really have a strong draft. And so the smoke would kind of build up in the house unless you like had preheated the stove, and then you could get the fire going and constantly have the draft going up. But basically it wasn't sucking the smoke out when you're getting a fire going from a cold start. But apparently somebody fixed that along the way, and we have more efficient fireplaces. And like you said, it's not a stove, it's a fireplace. It's almost like an insert where it goes into your fireplace, but big, metal, bulky, and is surrounded by air like on all sides to help heat the room more efficiently, right? As opposed to letting all the heat go up the chimney.
I wonder why they called it the stove. Was that just like a name for like a fireplace or something like that because they cooked there too?
I don't know.
It seems like a missed opportunity to call it the Franklin fireplace.
Franklin Fire Pits.
Franklin Fire.
Franklin Inferno.
Franklin Flame.
Franklin Flame.
So many
Incinerator.
missed opportunities.
Right. Yeah,
People in the
man.
1700s were dumb.
Seriously. What, they think they're special because they found some electric charge on their kite? Whoopity-doo.
Whatever. We have AI now.
Yeah, that can do it for us. We don't even need to discover it ourselves. So the other invention that I found was the flexible catheter. Yeah, which Sheldon said.
Yeah, I was shocked that wasn't part of the top 7. Yeah. I feel like as a man, I feel like I would appreciate that.
And apparently catheters existed, but they were like rigid, so it was basically like shoving a stick up your urethra. And his brother, according to the story, had kidney stones, and so he developed this catheter that had like silver segments on hinges to make it more flexible, and he mailed it to his brother and said, "Enjoy." And, so basically, he helped medical stuff advance because they're just, I don't know who thought it was a good idea. Shove this stick up your dick. I don't know. It seems horrible. But yeah, so that too. And like the rest, yeah, he covered the rest. So good IQ point.
Yeah. Well, he also invented swim fins, the odometer, and reaching devices, also known as the long arm.
I didn't see the odometer. That's interesting.
Yeah, I saw that on history.com.
Yeah. What was I going to add to that? Oh, swim fins. Those are basically like flippers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like,
yeah,
I was looking at pictures. I'm like, swim fins. Those look like flippers. Why are they called?
Yeah.
You know, they could have named them something cooler. Swim fin. Flappy feet. I don't know. Franklin's flappy feet.
Franklin's flappy feet.
Yeah. I don't know what they were thinking. Oh, wow. Okay, so moving on. Sheldon can tell Penny doesn't really care, and so he looks around and says, "Kites ho." He's given it using ho as whatever. Kites ho.
The acceptance of defeat.
Exactly. Leonard explains that they are going out for kite fighting, and oh wow, I didn't even realize this yet. It's going to come up, but he says it's really cutthroat. And I want you to remember that for an IQ point later about kite fighting.
I did. Dude, there's so much kite IQ points in this one. I actually did a little bit. I don't know if you want to put it in now or if we just want to talk about it later. Like, how serious of a sport is this?
We can put it in now. I mean, it's just basically, yeah, let's do it now. Why not?
So, yeah, do you want to go, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I'll give what I got, and then,
okay.
I'll see what I can do. So I found out on topendsports.com that kite fighting is real, and it's actually really popular in Asian countries, including India. Kites are typically made out of paper and have spurs made from flexible wood, usually bamboo. America, kind of when the U.S. kind of started with it, they started bringing synthetics into the kites, so not as much just paper and bamboo anymore, but that is traditional. And the aim is to cut your opponent's line. And basically, my understanding is you release tension, you give tension, you take tension, and pull the string to have your kite swoop down and try to cut other people's lines. You cut them, and you've won the kite battle. Now, the problem is, according to voanews.com, there's something called, I'm going to butcher this, manja?
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about this?
Yeah, about the glass.
Yeah, they put powdered glass on a sharp nylon. And this stuff has been really, really dangerous. And it's actually banned in India, but nobody really cares to stop it. Like, you can get in trouble, but they still sell it. But in January of last year, apparently 6 people were killed by this. Like, the string was falling down and it would get on their throats, and when they went to pull the string off, it would cut their throats, and like a couple kids died. And it's just like, and that's apparently a yearly thing too, that they use this dangerous string, and if it falls on you, it could just cut your throat and kill you. So when Leonard says it's cutthroat, he's not lying. Literally.
No,
so
it is, yeah.
I don't think he meant it that way, and I don't think they're using this type of string, but it could be dangerous. So yeah, that string's banned. You're not supposed to use it. It was banned in 2017, but people do still use it, and you have to be careful.
It also gets dangerous because a lot of the competition of kite fighting requires a kite runner too.
Oh.
So a lot of, depending on how the competition goes, there's two people. One person is flying the kite and one person is the runner. So once your opponent's kite gets cut off and everything, the kite runner, the game isn't over until it's claimed. So then the runners try to go and run to the kite as fast as possible. Oh. So that could be where a lot of deaths happen too, because they're actually running into like the line of fire.
Ooh. Right into the string itself.
Yeah. And it reminded me of the book Kite Runner, because there's actually I haven't read it, but I know that there's like a big part of it was that that the main character is like a kite runner.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I haven't read it either, but I know exactly what book you're talking about.
Yeah. It was pretty big like a little while ago.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I kind of just looked at, I don't know about you, but I feel like that this was very hard to find information about. Like, it was oddly hard to find for as popular of a sport as this is in so many countries. In addition to India, it's also really big in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Thailand, Korea, and Afghanistan. It's like, this is huge, like worldwide, but it's so hard to find information. I did find an American website, the kite.org, which is the home of the AKA, which is the American Kite Flyers Association. Even they didn't have like a lot of information on like how a lot of these competitions go down. It almost seems like it's more for hobbies, but at the same time they do hold competitions. So it's not just
Kite Club is like Fight Club. You don't talk about Kite Club.
Yet somehow there's an entire website dedicated to it. It just doesn't. But in addition to kite fighting, there's also like kite fighting. Find your best
fighting.
Kate.
I've raised this Kate since she was 5 years old, and I'm going to fight her now.
Well, they also have competitions in kite flying, where the competitors will make precision maneuvers. Kite making, where competitors compete for the best design, and then you can compete in them individually or as a team. And then apparently there are different fighting styles.
Oh.
In America, they actually do. But again, I couldn't find a lot of information on this. There wasn't a lot of like rules out there. I even skimmed through like the rule book, and it was more about like what's like sportsmanship.
Yeah.
It was more about like things like that, rules about like
how to
that,
behave,
not really
engage.
not really about like the actual competition itself. So like I said, and then I tried looking out for like YouTube videos on this, and it's funny because either maybe they're just trying to keep it secretive, or maybe every person that records a kite fighting competition is just really terrible at their job, but you just can't see anything. All they're doing is just showing the it's like when we were watching The Big Bang Theory, how it was focused on Sheldon just doing maneuvers and everything like that.
Yeah.
That's what was happening on YouTube. But it's like, can I see a kite, please?
This has kites in it, right? Like, I don't care about the person.
Like,
I know my failed IQ point this time was looking into the Raj says he had an authentic patong kite, and after 30 minutes I gave up because all I could find was that patong is Hindi for kite, and they separate them into sizes, but it's not necessarily like there's a super patong that is directly for fighting style. Or I couldn't find anything to really figure out what type is he had, or what made it special, or what type of techniques it might be better catered to than any other kite. So yeah, I kind of gave up on that. But
I tried looking into that too, because I was like, what's so special about a patong?
yeah.
And and like Ryan said, I could not find a whole lot of information on it. The only thing is like every country has their own style of kiter fights, but again, they don't really specify. They kind of talk about the shape a little bit. I did find that patongs usually are the diamond kite. Usually.
And I think I saw somewhere that in another language, patong actually means four. So I kind of wonder if there's some etymology there that it became kite because the type of kite with four corners, like you said, like the diamond type. So, I'm kind of taking a leap of faith there on guessing, but, maybe. But you're right.
Maybe.
That I was seeing that patong was typically used for the four cornered diamond ones.
That could be it. But then I also did find some information on the other countries that have fighter kites and their shapes and everything. So sorry if this is boring, everybody, but we found this fascinating.
I thought it was really fascinating. I had no idea that kite fighting was like that big of a deal.
Apparently, it's a huge deal.
I want to try it.
Yeah, I don't.
Kites ho, Rob. Kites ho.
I'll just hoe.
Oh.
Well, most other kiting fights in other countries do use that manja. Pakistan has a similar kite, so it's very, very similar to the patong. That's diamond shape, but they call it Gouda. The Afghani fighter kite is called chag, which is similar shape to the patong, but larger. There's also the tukal, which is a distinct oval shape with pointed edges and a semicircle bottom. It is heavier and slower than the traditional patong, but it's more likely to win a fight against the lighter, faster kites. Brazil fights with the pipa, which is shaped like a pentagon. Caribbean fighter kites have a hexagonal shape with a tail that's fitted with sharp objects. Chilean fighter kites, volanten, are square in shape and made of bamboo sticks. And then there are other common styles of fighter. Indonesia has what they call the Benang Jelsan. Then they also have the Leongun, the Palembang, and the Langanyan Aduan. I'm butchering all this, so I'm sorry.
No, I wouldn't be able to pronounce any of it either, so
in
no
Thailand,
judgment here.
In Thailand, the fighter kites are called Chula and Pakpao. In Nepal, it's called the Loktachang. And as we mentioned before, Japan has the Rokaku. So lots of different countries do different types of fighting kites. So crazy.
And I'm thinking part of this too is when I think kites, where is it? Whidbey Island or somewhere near me now. They have like a kite festival and they put together like huge kites and fly them like dragons flying in the air and stuff. Have you heard of that? I can't remember.
I do remember that. Yeah,
maybe somewhere. But I had a friend, my climbing partner, used to go like every year to watch the kites, and I was like, I need to go see those sometimes. But they don't fight with them, so I think it'd be kind of cool to have
what's the point?
Right? Yeah. If you have a dragon kite, it should be able to attack another dragon kite.
And it should be able to breathe fire.
Exactly. That's what dragons do. God damn it!
Screw your glass. Screw your glass lining.
Yeah.
It's all about.
We need fire.
It's like
Franklin's Inferno.
It's like Kripke's robot. It needs to breathe fire.
Exactly.
Well, one last thing, I did try to find because if there's so many competitions worldwide, there must be some cool prizes. And I could not find a single thing. I was like looking for like the largest cash prize for a kite fighting competition, but there was like nothing out there. It's like, what is this just like for shits and giggles? Is this just for bragging rights or something like that? I don't even know.
It's like Pogs. Like, what would you win from Pogs? Just maybe somebody else's
But you win
Pogs?
their Pogs. I guess you win their... I guess the winner of the competition just goes home with like 20 kites.
I won 20 kites today.
And I'm going to nail them on my wall since they're my trophies.
One by one. Or make like a necklace with them. All 20 kites around my neck.
But yeah, in terms of cash prizes, I could not find a lot of things. But at least with the AKA in America, for a lot of competitions, you have to pay to enter. But there's no cash prize for winning. Or at least if there is, they don't announce it on the website, which is weird.
Where's that money going? AKA might be pocketing a little bit.
I know. Yeah, like, I don't know. This is a really unique and strange underworld right here.
One that I never knew existed.
Kite fighting.
Okay, so is that all for the IQ?
I think that's all I had. I think, and then we kind of combined my other IQ point with the patang. So I think we'll just call this one IQ points. And now you will not. Well, that's a lie. I was gonna say we will be talking about kites again later because it's part of the storyline. So.
Exactly. Well, we're gonna try to talk about this episode without talking about kites again. It's gonna get confusing, but
we'll switch over to football now.
So Penny is having some friends over, and they're going to watch the Nebraska game, and that's where the title of the episode comes from. Nebraska's football team is the Cornhuskers, and she didn't invite Leonard, and so when she leaves, he's kind of looking around and he's like, well, this sucks, and Raj finally explains that Leonard has figured out he's being hidden from Penny's friends because he's a tiny little man who flies kites. And I laughed out loud because Sheldon says he got bored and stopped paying attention, and then he agrees that would suck, and then they go off to fly kites. So
yep,
I got bored and stopped paying attention. So
I did notice there is kind of like a little theme about Leonard and Penny's relationship. Like, this is just one example of many where it does not feel like they communicate with each other very well.
That's
true.
There
have been many instances where it's like she's just doing her thing and he's just doing his thing, and they have no idea.
And maybe it's just because they're at the start of the relationship, but I don't know how healthy that is. Like, if they were going strong for over a year, I guess it hasn't been a year. It's been like a couple months, right? Because they only got together this beginning of the season, so
I feel like, and texting was a thing back then, or just phone calls in general. You think that this early in the relationship, it would be like Leonard would be like, Penny, what you doing? You want to hang out? Let's hang out. Go on, let's hang out. But
I would think, yeah.
Instead he made plans with his friends, and she made plans with her friends. So maybe a bit of a red flag.
It was kind of weird too because when she said a few friends, I thought maybe 2 or 3 women over, but she had 20 people over, men and women, and they were drinking and had pizza. That was a full-fledged party. That was not a few friends over, so that was kind of weird.
To not invite Leonard.
Yeah, or at least mention oh, this is what I'm doing next weekend or something. Yeah. It's kind of weird, but we'll see. So they're at the park and they are flying the kites. Leonard is complaining, and Sheldon is frustrated because he's not paying attention. And then Sheldon ends up getting rope burn.
I do love his I wrote down this quote. I love this line. He's like, "You're embarrassing me right now. A grown man worrying about such nonsense when the middle flying kites."
Flying kites. And then Raj and Howard are... It starts off with Raj saying, "Oh, we've tricked them. They think we're flanking them. Quick, let's do our scissor move." I don't know what that would be. Maybe both kites go down at the same time. But Howard gets distracted because he thinks a girl has smiled at him. And he runs off, leaving Raj with both kites. And Raj loses the kite war. His kite gets cut. And so they're in the car going home, and Raj turns to Howard and says, "You are a sucky friend." And that kind of starts their side story over Raj being mad at Howard for the episode. And Howard didn't catch up to the girl because he pulled his hammy. Raj mentions that he doesn't have a hammy. He's 80 pounds. So didn't pull anything. And then Leonard is kind of having his own conversation up front and surmises that Penny is probably embarrassed of him because what else could it be? Sheldon suggests she may be scouting for a new mate and doesn't want to do so in front of him. And I made a note here. I didn't see anything. I looked up some side notes on the episode, but it really seemed like Sheldon was high in this episode, or in this particular scene. Did you notice that at all?
Oh, the way he was speaking a little bit quieter and everything.
Quieter and a little bit slowly.
Glazed.
Yeah.
I did notice that, but I didn't think anything of it.
Oh yeah. It's like I was kind of wondering if like that was intended or why it was happening. Never really explains it, but I'm glad you noticed it too, and I wasn't just making it up. But he was speaking kind of quiet.
Yeah, I did note it. Like it was a change in like the inflection of his voice and everything like that.
Yeah, compared to
I was like,
what he usually
maybe
does.
that's just how he gets deep about bonobo talk.
That could be, because that's the next IQ point. He mentions that
Right.
female bonobos will mate with new partners in front of the old one.
I did that too.
You want to take over the start of this one?
Sure. So first off, for anybody that doesn't know, what is a bonobo? A bonobo is a type of chimpanzee that is our closest relative. They share 98.7% of their DNA with humans. And, like Sheldon said, a female bonobo will just mate with a new lover, I don't know, with another bonobo right in front of the old lover. But basically, it's like sex for a bonobo is like the equivalent to a handshake to humans. So Sheldon was right. They go to Pound Town very often with one another, regardless of sex, age, and relation. A quickie usually lasts about 13 seconds, and this has also been attributed for how docile bonobos are. They're actually known for being very calm and peaceful, and it's because they're always taking it to Pound Town.
It's like if they ever get into a fight, like, oh, these are our food, these are our bananas or whatever they eat, and other bonobos are like, no, we found them first. It's like, let's just have sex and figure it out later. And that's what they do.
Yeah. That's all I had.
Yeah. I got a little bit more. I had found a New York Times article with a bunch of people talking, but the first person was Amy Parrish of University of Southern California, starting to talk that bonobos are a matriarchy. And a lot of the article talked about how that changes their dynamics between their partners, their spouses, not spouses, partners, and relations amongst each other and how they communicate. And Joan Silka of Arizona State says that bonobos are actually like the opposite of most other primates. So when it compares it to, like you said, other chimpanzees or whatever, bonobos are, they can still fight, but they are a lot more relaxed than other primates. And again, being a matriarchy is completely different than most primates. And I found that females will group and fight together, and males, I don't know if it's because of how much sex they're having, but they don't necessarily group up, which leaves the women in power because they're able to team up and force things to happen. If you have like 3 female bonobos versus 1 male, well, he's going to lose every time and run away. And they often, from what I was reading with this, they often do fight male bonobos off who are like being sexually aggressive or unwanted. So that kind of goes with that. Yeah, a female would mate in front of a male bonobo that she had mated with previously. I also found that bonobos are hypersexual, and we talked about being problem solvers, but they also have been known to make sex toys. So I thought that was interesting. They really pound town. Females are, it's like one of the only primates that the females are not afraid to reject suitors. So they, other primates, some of them, the females have to just mate with everybody who comes up because they're scared of rejecting anybody. But in this case, the women hold all the power. And the cool thing that I found was, this brings up, well, how do men protect themselves or stay gain any respect in their groups? And apparently men stay with their moms and have their moms solve all their battles even into their adulthood. And so basically this also the mom also helps find a partner for the male, and so the male doesn't necessarily go around trying to find a mate. It's the mom saying, okay, you do my son now type thing. And if she's older and more respected, that goes down at work. So these are really interesting characters, creatures. I had no idea about them. So, but he's right. They are very sexual creatures.
Yeah, I remember bonobos were a very central topic in my anthropology class in college.
Oh.
We talked about them a lot, but I don't remember this part at all.
Somehow we missed the sex toys.
I know.
What's college teaching you if not sex toys?
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
I remember there was a human sexuality class that everybody wanted to take because there was Porn Fridays. At least that's what everyone called it. It was basically they had their lectures throughout the week, and then on Fridays it was video time where they played a video. It was basically real sex.
That reminds me of the episode of Friends where Chandler thinks Monica has gone in porn for their anniversary, and it turns out to be a birthing video.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
that was a different episode. The sharks.
Oh, the sharks. But I imagine going to that sexuality class and be Porn Friday. I'm oh God, what am I watching? You will be tested on this, so pay attention and take notes.
It was in one of the bigger lecture halls at UW too. I forgot what it was called, but it was it could fit 400, 300 people. Uh-huh. That's gotta be so awkward watching porn with that many people. Okay, I shouldn't call it porn. I'm sure it was an educational sex video.
Sexucation.
Yeah.
Important.
Yes. I learned experience. A lot. Just like how Leonard learned on Google.
Because Howard's saying that he was chasing her through the park, and Raj says that's not a shot, that's a felony because you're basically stalking her. And Raj is kind of right there, and that made me laugh. And Raj mentions that he's very disappointed because he's lost his Patang fighting kite to Sheldon, and he asks if he might have it back. And Sheldon says, no, the rules clearly state that I have to keep it, and if we didn't follow the rules, then there would be no meaning behind, haha, I've got your kite. But again, he's talking really slow and relaxed. He's haha, I got your kite. It seemed out of character for Sheldon, so I don't know. I'm curious if anybody else watches that, what they think or make of Sheldon's interaction there.
Yeah, shoot us a message, shoot us a comment. Let us know if you noticed it at all.
Maybe you know something. Maybe he had a cold and was on a lot of NyQuil or something. That's what I read. What's her name? Not. Who's the woman who was in Pitch Perfect? Kendrick?
Anna Kendrick.
Anna Kendrick. I read her autobiography and her memoir, and she talks about this infamous picture of her at some movie awards, and people are oh, she looks like she's mean or grumpy or something, and she's I was so high, I was sick, and I had chugged a bottle of cough syrup or something. I didn't really know where I was, let alone what was going on. And so I kind of wonder, like, we don't think about actors and movie stars going through that, but they have life just like we do, and it's going to influence their performances and their work schedule.
No, they don't. They're gods.
They're gods.
They're not allowed to feel things.
I thought you were going to say they're fake. They're not real. Their only job is to please me and entertain me. Dance, Sheldon, dance.
They are perfection personified. They aren't allowed to have feelings or have bad days.
So, we are at Penny's now, and she says they won the game. And I like how Leonard puts this, that isn't it weird that in sports you say we won, even if you're just an audience, you're spectator? Because in movies you don't say we beat the Empire, we destroyed this Death Star, right? It's, the Jedis, the good guys beat the bad guys. It's not we.
I think you and I are the worst people to have a conversation about sports with, though.
Yeah, that's true. I don't get it.
You and I are not sports people.
We are not sports people. That's to say the least.
Do the sport.
I went to a hockey game the other night. That was fun.
Oh, did you go to the Kraken?
Yeah.
How was it? I heard it was
Climate
awesome.
Pledge Arena. Well, it's really cool because I didn't realize this, but apparently they weren't allowed to move the roof or change the roof or something with Climate Pledge. And so instead of building up the stadium, they dug down. And so you go like in the first floor and there's like 3 levels downwards. It's kind of weird. But they had a lot of good food. I had some fried chicken sandwich. I had some ice cream. I had some beers. That's why I do sports. How I do sports. I go for the food.
That's usually not the case with a lot of stadiums. It's like $20 for a shitty hot dog, $18 for a beer.
It was all very expensive, but the food was good. And I was talking to Taylor. I'm like, I was expecting like a bratwurst at best, and he's like, no, there's a lot more here. I'm like, wow. He finally breaks down and asks if she's embarrassed to be seen with him or embarrassed of him. And she says no, and she's actually really nice about this and understanding. I was kind of surprised that she didn't get irritated at all. I feel like in other sitcoms, if somebody's like, are you embarrassed of me? Like it would turn into a fight or something. But this was, she was just like, no, of course not. And she's fine with him meeting her friends. She's just doesn't want him to get bored because she knows he doesn't like sports or football. And also her friends aren't geniuses. And he mentions that he's friends with a lot of people who aren't geniuses. And just like, name one. And he goes, a lot of people on Facebook. So apparently she got him that he doesn't necessarily hang out with people who aren't geniuses. Although he could have said the comic book store guy, so...
Well, I think I don't know if he really classifies them as friends, I think. I think it's more like the acquaintances and everything. Because we really only see him hang out with, like, Raj, Howard, and Sheldon. Mm-hmm. And even Leslie, he'll see every once in a while, but she's like a super genius.
She's a genius too. Yeah. And so Penny invites him to the next game and says not to worry because many of the girlfriends don't understand football either, and they just stand in the kitchen and drink and talk. And so he's going to be lumped in with the girlfriends, apparently. Dude,
I would be glad to be there.
I have no problem with that.
As close to the food as possible. As long as I'm close to the food, I don't even care.
Food and beers, that's all I care about, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be happy. So we are next in their apartment, and they are Leonard is watching and studying football with Raj. Sheldon is on his computer doing some work. And I like Raj points out that all he's learned so far is American men like beer, pee too often, and have trouble getting erections. Apparently that's what he's gaining from the commercials. And the fact that if they cut the beer out, other problems would probably be fixed too. They can avoid going to the bathroom and please their women. And Howard comes in and mentions that they are supposed to be pimping up his Vespa. So he has a scooter, apparently. And Raj says he's still mad and leaves. But Howard sits down and takes his place. And Leonard mentions or asks what the SACS facts are. SACS statistics. I don't know what they were. And Howard says his mom shops at Saks, and I'm like, that's about all I have as well. But then we have Sheldon jumping in and explaining what Saks statistics are and what scrimmage lines are. And apparently, because he grew up in Texas, he knows football. And that for like 7 years of his life, he was forced to go to football games quite regularly. And this is where I get a point for not being like Sheldon. I lived in Texas. I lived most of my life in the Midwest. I don't know the rules of football. I don't know what a scrimmage line is. I don't know what the sacks facts are.
Yeah, I know enough to follow along just because my dad and my brother were super into football. I remember, like, as a child trying to, like when they were watching a game, I'd kind of hop in for, like, a little bit to try to understand it just so I could be part of the circle and everything like that. But then I'd get really bored and leave.
Yeah, I've tried. I've gone to football parties. I've watched some. I hate the Super Bowl. It's on today. Oh my God, isn't it?
No, it's next week.
Oh,
so we're
week?
recording this a little early, so by the time that this airs, Super Bowl's already done. But for us, right now, the Super Bowl is next Sunday.
I just know that it runs, like, around the same time as my birthday. And oftentimes people, like, cancel plans for my birthday to watch the Super Bowl. I'm like, angry. If I could have an arch nemesis of the Super Bowl, I would, but it's not a person, so whatever. Anyways, I could never figure out the rules. In fact, now every time I watch, there's still something I learn that doesn't make sense. I'm like, are they always been allowed to do that? Why does that happen? So yeah, I'm very.
There's a lot of flags get thrown, and that's like where like if you do watch, you kind of just have to watch and like really like listen to like what's happening. Like, why did that flag get thrown? Why did this happen? What's going on? And you kind of pick it up after a while. Like,
and they mentioned this later too,
four
but
downs, blah blah blah, shit like that.
Timer is basically a lie. They could have 10 minutes, and you're looking at a 4-hour period. Like I never trust that clock. That's with hockey. I like because it's pretty.
It never
set.
stops.
It never really stops. Yeah.
Like that, it's part of the strategy of football, though, too, where it's like you have to like do it in a way where like you have to do certain plays that will stop the clock and everything.
And I guess the same can be said about baseball.
I learned that in Varsity Blues. Hey, how do you stop the Monday Blues? Varsity Blues.
Varsity Blues.
Are you there? Are you at that point in The Office?
Yes, I did see that one. Varsity. It's the movie day, right? Varsity Blues.
It makes them more productive. How? Because then they have to make up for the 30 minutes that they lost. Well, before we dive forward, I actually did a quick IQ point. As you mentioned, Penny's team is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And I was curious if that was a real team, but you already mentioned they are a real team. I didn't think it was a real team because I was like, why would they name themselves the Cornhuskers? It's like, why wouldn't you go with a more fierce name? Not to make fun of Nebraska, I'm sorry, but I was like, really? That's your team name?
And the mascot's like a guy, like a farmer with flexing his muscles or something.
Yeah, but they are a real college football team. They compete as part of the NCAA Division I football subdivision, representing the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in the West Division of the Big Ten. Nebraska football owns one of the richest championship traditions in college football history, capturing 5 national championships. The Huskers won back-to-back crowns in 1970 and 1971, and then they won again back-to-back in 1994 and 1995, and then again in 1997. And we are in 2009. So how are they doing in 2009? I'll tell you. They finished the season 10-4, 6-3 in the Big 12, and were Big 12 North Division champions, and represented the division in the Big 12 championship game, where they lost to Texas 13-12. Nebraska was invited to the Holiday Bowl, where they defeated Arizona 33-0. And I don't know what most of that means.
They won.
Yep.
They beat the Empire.
They were winners. They actually are a very good team. And right now, in 2023, they finished the season 5-7.
Is that good?
That's bad. That
That's
means
bad.
that they lost. They won 5 games and they lost 7.
Oh,
So, yeah.
wow.
It's not the worst though.
It's not great. Is that good? No, Ryan. No.
Yeah, Quidditch is more up our alley. Just like what Howard thought Sheldon would know more, but I'm
Yeah.
sure he knows it very well too.
I like that Sheldon mentions as well that in Texas, football is everywhere, except European football, which most Texans believe is a commie plot. So,
Did your family think that back in Texas?
No. In fact, when I was in Kansas, they actually I never did any football. I did soccer. So my mom was a bigger soccer fan than actual American football. But yeah, my
Which
parents,
is the real football, though. It's
Right?
the world sport. Yeah,
It's the
it's
world
kind of
sport.
crazy. Yeah.
It's what was I gonna say about football? Kumquat. Oh, it reminded me of the episode of King of the Hill where Bobby doesn't want to play football; he wants to play soccer. Have you seen that episode?
I remember watching that, but I don't remember it all.
Like, I don't remember a whole lot of it, but I remember Bobby's like, "We tied. Everybody's a winner." And Hank's like, "No, that means everybody's a loser."
Did I tell you? I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago, but like I was out of town and we were in a hotel and King of the Hill was on.
Uh-huh.
And I haven't watched King of the Hill in like 15 plus years. I remember watching it as a child, but I didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't understand it. But now as an adult, I think it's like the most funny thing in the world. I was like, this is amazing. Because like it's not really child humor.
Yeah, it's
It's
very,
really
very
not.
dry adult humor.
Yeah, and that's why I was never a fan back in the day.
That makes sense. So I was telling Kelsey about the episode where Hank's like, Luann, maybe it's about time you move back into your home, your trailer. And she's like, oh, I can't do that. It tipped over in the storm. He's like, well, what if you tip it right back up? And she goes, no, you can't do that. It's tipped over. It's like, oh, I'll go and tip it up. She's like, no, it's tipped over. It's funny.
Maybe I'll get around to watching that again
Someday.
So many other things, though.
Yeah. It's tipped over. That, the guest stars were great. Tom Petty played a voice.
Oh, I never really paid attention to like I said, I didn't really watch it. Like it came on after Simpsons, so I watched Simpsons, and then like when King of the Hill came on, it's like next.
Checking out.
Yeah.
Alright, so well, that was too where in the football soccer episode, like Hank's like trying to coach the football team or something, and it's like muddy and raining and everybody's unhappy, and like one kid like gets up and he's supposed to like join the game, but he takes off his jersey and runs over to where they're playing soccer, and there's like butterflies and a rainbow. Okay, so Leonard asks Sheldon that for help understanding football, and he makes it clear this is a tier 1 friendship request to explain the game. And so Sheldon goes over and sits down and throws the book down on the table of Football for Dummies, right? So apparently he knows something about football, which I just that's the one point I have this episode, and it's me not being like Sheldon, that I'm surprised that he knew anything about it. So
I guess we learned like with his strong memory, with his dad like sitting him down and forcing him to watch it, he would retain it like a sponge, just unintentionally.
Yeah. Imagine that.
It's not that he likes it, but he knows it just because it's like, well, it's in the old memory box.
And like we talked about last episode, he has photogenic memory, which isn't a thing.
Yeah, I mean, technically, he does have a photogenic memory. So, if you're new to the podcast, you should check that episode out.
It's a good IQ point. All right,
Yeah.
So next morning, he is making Cylon toast with the burned-in image. Apparently, the toaster toasts it with a Cylon image on it. And Leonard comes out wearing an oversized jersey. And like Sheldon calls it a cocktail dress. And they start talking about how that was the only size they had except for the ones for dogs. And I had to laugh because Sheldon said, yeah, a lot of canines will be sporting event enthusiasts, but cats aren't. Which his sister learned the hard way by trying to put a jersey on their cat. So, that was interesting. Sheldon says...
I was wondering, why is he making so much toast?
It doesn't explain, does it?
They never explained that. It's like, why are you making... There's like 10 slices on his plate.
And then, like, he runs out of bread, so he has to go borrow it from the penny later. He's like, I ran out of bread. What the fuck is he doing with the toast?
What are you doing with so much bread?
But they never explained it, which I find funny. I wish they would have said, but it's kind of funny nonetheless. Like, what the hell is he doing? So it's like the whole loaf stacked up. Sheldon says it's seems like a lot of work to be going to this game because he's afraid that Penny will no longer have sex with him if he doesn't put in this work. He goes, doesn't he have access to women who will just have sex intercourse for money? Which is apparently another use for the word hoe. Mm-hmm. So, yes, it is. Kaito, sex hoe. Sex hoe. We are at Raj's apartment now, and Howard has brought him a new kite. And Raj explains that his kite was an authentic Patang Indian fighting kite. This new one is a Hello Kitty kite. I wonder what made...
it could be a fighter.
It could be.
You put it with the dust glass on there?
Yeah. Hello Kitty's a little vicious, right? She gets angry.
Kitty has claws.
Kitty has claws. And Howard says, but this one comes with a little purse. The Patang kite did not. And Raj mentions that he can't buy something pretty to fix the problem. He's too often a sucky friend. And Howard says Raj is mad at himself because he can't talk to girls without being drunk. And I love this line. Raj says, I hate myself, but I'm mad at you. It's very clear. Oh, I hate myself, but...
No, I'm actually mad at you.
Howard says, what if I take you somewhere nice and we can kind of spend some friend time and make things up? And Raj says he likes the Brea Tar Pits. And Howard's like,
they're such a married couple. He's trying to buy him something pretty. He wants to take him on a date night and everything just to smooth things over.
That's at first, the first time I watched this episode, I thought like, oh, this is kind of nothing really happens with them episode, but it's kind of it does say something about their relationship, that they're like an old married couple, that he's buying him things, and I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it shows like. Because like in other episodes we showed them at the good times, like when they go like hit on goth girls and stuff like that, and now they're showing the bad times where like there are some rough edges with their relationship,
highs and lows.
Yep.
And so they are off to the Brea Tar Pits. We're back at Penny's, and Leonard is...
I actually did a quick IQ point on the Brea Tar Pits.
Oh, cool.
I know it has nothing really to do with the episode. I was just kind of a little curious about more about the Brea Tar Pits. I kind of knew what they were, but I kind of didn't know at the same time. So it's kind of a good reason to just research a little bit. So this will be a little quick one. The Brea Tar Pits is an active paleontological research site in urban Los Angeles. Hancock Park was formed around a group of tar pits where natural asphalt, or brea in Spanish, has seeped up from the ground for tens of thousands of years. Over many centuries, the bones of trapped animals have been preserved. The George C. Page Museum is dedicated to researching the tar pits and displaying specimens from the animals that died there. The Brea Tar Pits is a registered national landmark. That's all I had. So if anybody is interested in seeing it, it is in Los Angeles. If you like natural history, it's the place to go. And I would love to go there at some point.
What causes it to spit up out of the earth like that?
Nature.
Magic.
Natural magic. But yeah, I guess that's the cool thing is that it to this day, it is still an active tar pit that is still producing the tar and everything. It's still like really hot, bubbles up and everything like that. And you can go see it.
Do animals still get caught in it? I assume like if they're walking along or flying down, like
I'm sure it's roped off, and I hope birds are smart enough to not go in there.
They aren't though. Okay, so we are at Penny's, and Leonard is cheering on what happens to be a highlight. And Penny asks how much beer he's had, and he's like, none. She was hoping that he was drunk because that would at least explain his issues. And Leonard starts over-explaining the game and really seems out of place because he's pointing out the obvious, I guess. Again, I don't know much about what he's talking about or what they're talking about, so...
he was basically describing the situation in a very technical manner.
Scientific and overdoing so, too. And Sheldon comes in and needs bread because he's toasted all of his. He wants to make a sandwich. And
did he actually eat it? What was he doing?
What was he doing with the bread?
I'm gonna remember this. If we ever get big enough to get Chuck Lorre on this podcast to actually interview him, that's gonna be one of the questions.
Number one question: what happened to that bread?
What's up with the Cylon toast? What did he do with it?
Circle that.
I know, I better highlight this too.
Chuck Lorre, we have questions. So, Penny says that the bread is in the fridge, and he mentions that it's actually bad to keep bread in fridge, that it causes what's the word? The crystallization of the starch molecules to occur more quickly. And I did a quick IQ point on this, basically finding that this is true. And I've heard different things about this because I didn't hear that it made bread staler. I heard that it helped bacteria grow more quickly, but maybe what I heard was just the notion that it does make it go stale and kind of confusion between going bad and stale, because stale bread, it's not fun to eat, but it's not rancid. It's not bad. And technically, I mean, croutons, right, are stale breads. It's dried out bread. But anyways, with going stale, according to SeriousEats.com, drying out is part of the problem, that the bread's losing moisture, so it's becoming more like bone dry and crispier. But the other part is what's called retrogradation and recrystallization, which is basically as the bread ages. Well, actually, when you cook the starch and you mix it with water and put it at a high temperature, the starch is a naturally crystallized molecule, and the baking and mixing of the product causes those crystals to break down. And then once it's like returned to normal temperature, they kind of start recrystallizing. It wants to go back to that natural state. And in theory, putting it in the fridge causes it to cool down and those crystals to reform more quickly. However, it made a really important point here that if you put it in the freezer, though, it halts the crystallization process. And when you take it out of the freezer, it's going to be in thaw it. It should be good as new. So, again, being on the counter goes stale less quickly than in the fridge, but in the freezer it stops. And it trying to put it out that you really, really want to wrap it up well if it's in the fridge or not in the fridge, because if it's not wrapped up well, or just like in a, I don't know, bread drawer, cupboard, what are those called?
Bread box?
Bread box, yeah, that it's going to go stale because pretty quickly, if it's in the fridge or not, if it's unwrapped, because it's losing all that moisture. So, yeah, if you're going to keep it out, wrap it up well and keep it on the counter. And also it mentioned that you can always try heating it up again, preheating or reheating it in the oven for a little bit, and it will kind of re-destroy, uncrystallize it, and could help with the staleness a little bit. So some options there. Yeah. Okay.
I have a little. Well, I do have a little. I actually did the same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. Well, I have a little bit of a follow up on this. I know you said that like the best way to preserve your bread and to keep it fresh is to actually wrap it up. That's actually like I actually found some contradicting information on that, even from my own experience, because like I'm a fatty at heart and I have lots of bread, lots of carbs.
Love bread.
Yep, love it. I looked at multiple websites. Granted, they are not that scientific. MarthaStewart.com, SouthernLiving.com, and Taste of Home. I looked at what they thought in their experiments was the best place to store your bread. So for anybody, any bread enthusiasts out there, maybe this is what you should do. Store your bread at room temperature in a cool, dark, dry place, such as the pantry, a bread box, or a cabinet, if you plan to eat it quickly, and freeze it if you want it to last longer. Because as Ryan said, the freezing process kind of like preserves it. So when you thaw it out, it'll come out good as new. But if you want to like have like superior bread on access at all time, you should definitely get a bread box. So in multiple experiments amongst all these different chefs, they discovered that the bread box actually preserved it the best, assuming you're going to eat it more or less instantly. Because a bread box retains the moisture like a plastic bag, but it's more breathable, so it stays crispy. So what happens is if you wrap the bread, depending on what kind of bread you have, if you have like a loaf of bread from like a bakery or something like that that has that crispy outer part and like the soft fluffy inside, when you wrap it up in plastic, it's basically the moisture is just going to constantly circulate. So it makes it softer. So those edges are going to go a little soft. But if you leave it in the bread box, the air will circulate a little bit better. So the edges are going to stay crispier and the inside is going to stay fluffy and soft.
You know, you make a good point, because I now think about it, that I've had baguettes that I've kept wrapped up, and it makes what's supposed to be the crispy outside like really chewy and not very good, and I'm like, that kind of ruins it. So I can see.
But you can bring it back to life, as you said, like by throwing it in the oven or a toaster oven or something like that.
Was that what he was doing with the toast? Was his all stale?
He was bringing it back to life. But still, 10 slices. What are you doing with all that bread? Are you going to feed the ducks? But if you are, you don't toast it.
Oh. Anything else about that one? That was a nice little IQ point.
No, I love bread. I'm passionate about this because I remember going back and forth with my wife about whether or not we should buy a bread box, because we bake our own bread all the time. But then like we wrap it up in plastic and then it's not as good within a couple of days. So it's like, well, what should we do? So we wanted to get a bread box, but then we have such a tiny home that it's like, well, where are we going to put it? So we do. So
get rid of the microwave.
Yeah, we don't need that.
We need a bread box.
Well, hopefully with the new house, we'll be able to get a bread box.
This is why we're upgrading our house, so we can get a bread box.
Yeah, who cares about space for the kid?
Yeah, who cares?
You can play in a little corner. I need some space for a bread box.
Who cares about living in a place where somebody wasn't murdered next door? I need a bread box.
Homicide, not murder.
Oh, wow. So I was wrong. I do have a point for Sheldon here, because Sheldon comes in and is talking to Leonard and says, "How's the mimesis going?" And Leonard seems very, very confused, and Sheldon has to explain mimesis is when a mimic takes on the characteristics of another item or person. And Leonard is still confused, and Sheldon restates himself and says, "Is the local fauna accepting you?" And I give myself a point, because I will often talk in code like this, and people will look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? But, like, I don't want to say what I'm actually saying because it might be weird. It might be unsuitable for the time and place. At dinner, there's things you don't talk about. But if you have code words, you can talk about those things. But I do talk in code, and it often confuses people I'm trying to talk to. And when I explain it, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, why didn't you get it? Like, it was easy. This isn't like a, super code.
You didn't send me the code breaker.
I got your code breaker right here. That's what I got. Oh, man. So anyways, 1 point for Sheldon there. I forgot about that, but
neck and neck again.
Yeah. And then we have Leonard or Sheldon asking Leonard if he wants to fly kites with him, trying to give him an escape route. And I respect that. And that was the second thing that I doubled down on this point. Or I didn't double down, but I said, yeah, this counts as a point because I would also throw like an easy escape for a friend, a line to a friend if they needed it, without being too over the top. And
Sheldon asks if he wants to take his Delta Raptor out to fly. So this is kind of a failed IQ point because I wanted to look into the specific kite that Leonard had.
Yeah.
But so he calls it a Delta Wing Raptor, and I could not find this.
Huh.
Actually, no, sorry. He calls it his Delta Raptor, but the only thing that I could find is like the Delta Wing Raptor, but it was hard to find any information because unless we know what the specific model that Leonard has, you really don't know. So Delta Wing is actually a reference to the shape of the kite. It's the classic triangle shape because it looks like a plane or a bird. As for the Raptor, I thought it might be the brand, but I could not see anything. I did find a kite called the Slingshot Raptor, but that wasn't a kite. It was a kite boarding kite. So water surfing.
Oh.
So I could not find any information on this. I was like going on all these kite websites to like kind of see like the names and everything like that, but it was like, no, can't find it.
Why are kite clubs so secretive? Did the toast have something to do with the kites? It's all mystery.
Oh my god, is he lining his string line with crumbs? With sharp Cylon crumbs?
Cylon crumbs, that makes sense. Toast crumbs. They're very sharp and they will cut the string. Huh.
Depending on the bread, that shit gets sharp.
It does.
I don't think he would eat like a baguette though, or some sort of sturdy Italian loaf.
You would think. But what else could he be doing with 10 slices of toast?
This is going to be the mystery that drives us crazy throughout the rest of the series.
That's, Oh, I remember when The Sopranos ended. Like, I was reading an article my dad gave me about the end of it and kind of summing it up and mentioning that there was a mystery that was never solved. And I remember it. Did you watch any Sopranos?
Random episodes here and there. I didn't really watch it.
There was an episode where two of the guys, Tony Soprano's like men, take a Russian out into the woods and they're supposed to execute him. And something goes wrong and he ends up escaping, but he's like completely naked. And he runs away and it never says what happens to this Russian. And in this article, like that was a question I always had. It goes, the only question I have left at Sopranos, the end of Sopranos, is what happened to the naked Russian? And I'm like, yes, what happened to him? So, sometimes...
And they never talked about it?
They
like,
never talked about
articles?
it. Yeah, as far as I know, I never mentioned what happened to the naked Russian running through the woods. Mystery. So Penny says that Leonard can go off if he wants to, and Leonard says, no, I can stay. There's only like 3 minutes left. And she goes, that's till halftime. You're going to be here for several more hours. So he gets up and leaves. And
Bye.
I like Penny's look. She goes, that's my boyfriend. He's really smart. And again, I like their relationship here, because in other sitcoms I feel like they would probably be fighting about this, but she's just like, it is what it is, and I respect that mentality. And then we flash forward to the Tar Pits, where Raj likes his saber-toothed cat. He has Howard has bought him a little toy of a saber-tooth. And they say maybe they can go to Mary Callender's afterwards to have some pie. And then a girl walks by, and Howard said she smiled at me. And Raj says to go after her. He's a very attractive man and should think of himself that way, even though he could probably use a Pilates class here and there. And Raj says, now that I think about it, I think that girl smiled at you. And saying, I agree with you. And Howard finally takes off, and it ends with Raj saying, what a douche. He's a douche.
Yep.
And
I looked into Murray Callender's.
Right. I know the frozen pies. I didn't realize, is it a restaurant too?
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to look into. So I won't call this an IQ point because this has nothing to do with the show, but just for my own curiosity, I grew up having the frozen pot pie, having their frozen dinners and everything like that. So that's all I knew it as. So I didn't actually realize that this was a real restaurant. And there are quite a few of them just in the LA area. Just in their area, to this day, surviving COVID and everything, there are still 10.
Wow.
And I browsed through the menu, and it reminds me of Cheesecake Factory. So they have this huge menu, but instead of cheesecakes on their dessert, it's pie. So I love
pie. I love pie so much. Sweet pie, savory pie, hand pies.
I definitely like savory hand pies the best. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like to look at menus and pretend that I'm going there so I can see what I would want to order. And I feel like I would just get the pot pie. Like, they have, like, cheeseburgers and other, like, home-style dinners, like meatloaf and chicken and stuff like that. But it's like, nah, I'll just get the pot pie.
Yeah.
And for pies, I think I would go with the banana cream or a custard pie. Yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah, I had fun going through that menu.
There's a pie place near me that opened up like a year ago, and they have all sorts of savory pies, lamb pie, steak pie, chicken pot pie, and they have a lot of sweet pies too. And one of them was, what is it, like bourbon banana, and it was fantastic. I love pies, although I always stress because I want chocolate in my pie. And so it's hard for me to go with like a coconut cream or a banana cream because I'm like, I want chocolate. And so I go with the chocolate, but I always feel like I missed something not going with the cream pie because they're really good too.
You should just get both.
Sometimes I
Double
do.
down it.
Double down. And I tell you, wild berry pies with ice cream, wow.
I feel like in my old age, I'm finding more an appreciation for pie. Growing up, we weren't really big pie fans. I was definitely more of a cake person. I still definitely have a preference over cake, but I'm finding a new appreciation for pie.
I think I was more of a cake kid, but my dad, I think, has never been a fan of cake, so he's been more of a pie person. And it was weird that, he's not one for desserts or sweets all that much anyways, but it was weird that I was a cake person when he was definitely more so a pie person. Like you said, age and pies go hand in hand, and that's something I love about England, is you go to, like, London, they have pies on every street corner. Like, everything's a pie, and they're good pies.
That's the best, though. Like, anything encased in dough and just filled with stuff, like... Technically, a calzone is like a little hand pie. Empanadas,
that's
all
what
that
I had to
stuff.
explain.
Technically, they are all pies, like a savory pie.
Kelsey didn't know what an empanada was. I'm like, it's like a hand pie.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yep. Stuff with meats and veggies and sauce and everything.
Oh, good stuff. So the last thing here is the vanity card. I almost forgot it. But I actually went onto a website that has all of them listed, And this one, I believe it said Chuck Lorre Productions number 265. Your light was on.
You got lucky. This is
Right,
a short
that's
one.
I had to double check because yours have been like 3 paragraphs long, full pages, essays, and I got your light was on.
I got ahead on the next episode, and it's a long fucker again. So, you got lucky. Oh, man. Chuck Lorre, I hate you. But I still want to meet you and interview you, so I love you.
We've got questions.
Tell me about the Cylon toast.
Tell me about the toast. Chuck.
Now interview over. That's all I wanted to know.
That's all. It's always great meeting you. Thanks.
Okay, bye. All right. Well, that was the episode. We did it. Thanks again for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Don't forget to shoot us an email at theoreticalnonsencepod@gmail.com. Write us a review on Apple and Spotify. We'll see you next time when we talk Season 3, Episode 7, The Guitarist Amplification.
See you later.
See you next time. This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory Watch-Along podcast. No PhD required. Our intro and outro music was by Alex Grohl. Thanks for listening.
Gauche.
Ghosh.
Gauche.
Ghosh.
Gauche.
Ghosh.
Gauche.
Ghosh. 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 Ghosh.
I like that gauche.